Keanu Reeves was exhausted that evening. He had spent the whole day on set under the scorching sun, filming back-to-back scenes that demanded every ounce of his energy. But instead of heading straight to his hotel, he asked his driver to drop him at a small diner on the edge of town. Keanu loved simple places where no one expected anything from him, where he could just be another man trying to find warmth in a cup of coffee. He walked in quietly, wearing his old black cap and a faded jacket, hoping no one would notice him. The diner was half empty. Rain tapped gently on the window panes, making the neon sign flicker outside. Keanu chose a corner booth and sat alone, staring at the menu but not really reading it. His mind was clouded with thoughts, not about movies or fame, but about how strange life could be. He had money, he had people who adored him, but he still felt an emptiness that fame could never fill. Sometimes, he wondered if he was truly living or just drifting through days that all felt the same. While he waited for his coffee, he noticed a young girl outside the diner. She looked no older than 16, wearing an oversized coat with holes at the elbows. Her shoes were wet and too big for her tiny feet. She stood by the window, peeking inside like she was trying to find warmth just by looking at other people eat. Her eyes were tired, but they carried a strange strength, as if she had learned to fight silently every day. Keanu watched her for a long time. He remembered how he too had faced dark days, days when he felt invisible even when the cameras were pointed right at him. He could feel her pain, like it was echoing inside his own chest. When she finally turned away from the window, her head lowered against the cold wind, something inside him moved. He stood up, grabbed his coffee, and walked outside, ignoring the curious glances from the waitress who had just recognized him. He approached the girl slowly, careful not to frighten her. She flinched when she saw him, stepping back like a bird, ready to fly. Keanu smiled gently, holding out his cup of coffee like a peace offering. He asked her softly if she was hungry. The girl didn't speak. She just looked at him, her eyes wide and guarded. Her small hands clutched the torn strap of her backpack. Keanu didn't press her with questions. Instead, he told her he could buy her something warm to eat if she would come inside with him. After a moment of hesitation, the girl nodded. They walked back into the diner together. The people inside turned to stare. Some recognized Keanu immediately, whispering his name like he was some magical creature that didn't belong in their small world. But Keanu didn't care. He guided the girl to his booth and asked the waitress to bring her anything she wanted. The girl sat stiffly, her eyes darting around like she expected someone to throw her out any second. Keanu watched her closely, seeing how she touched the edge of the table with trembling fingers, how her lips parted slightly when the smell of food reached her nose. When the burger and fries arrived, she didn't wait for permission. She dug in hungrily, chewing so fast she almost choked. Keanu asked the waitress for a glass of water and gently reminded the girl to slow down. She paused, wiped her mouth with the back of her sleeve, and gave him a shy smile that broke his heart a little. They didn't talk much at first. Keanu just let her eat in peace. He didn't want her to feel like she owed him her story. But as the minutes passed, the girl began to speak. Her voice was soft, like she hadn't used it in a long time. She told him her name was Lily. She had run away from home months ago. Her father was gone, and her mother had a new boyfriend who made the house feel unsafe. She tried to stay with friends, but the streets had been her only shelter for weeks. Now, she was tired, cold, and always hungry. Keanu listened without interrupting. He knew the world could be cruel. He had seen it up close, the way people turned their heads away from pain they didn't want to touch. But here she was, a young girl fighting alone, with nothing but her will to survive. He felt a tightness in his chest, an ache that reminded him of all the times he wished someone had shown him kindness when he needed it the most. When Lily finished her meal, she sat back with tears in her eyes. She tried to say thank you, but the words caught in her throat. Keanu reached across the table and held her small, trembling hand in his. He didn't say big words about hope or miracles. He just told her he was proud of her for staying strong, for not giving up when life had done everything to break her. What Lily didn't know was that this simple act of kindness would set off a chain of events neither of them could have imagined. As they sat in that tiny diner, rain still falling gently outside, something bigger than both of them was taking shape. A story that would touch countless hearts and remind the world that kindness was never a small thing. The night grew colder outside the diner, but inside, a strange warmth spread between Keanu and Lily. She kept glancing at him, like she still couldn't believe someone like him, a stranger with kind eyes, was sitting here with her. For the first time in weeks, her stomach was full and her hands weren't shaking from hunger. But she knew that once she stepped outside again, the cruel wind would swallow her whole. Keanu sensed her fear without her saying it. He remembered how he used to feel that same dread, not for a roof over his head, but for a place in this world where he felt truly safe. He asked Lily if she had somewhere to stay tonight. She lowered her head, her hair falling over her face. She whispered that she usually slept behind the gas station a few blocks away. It was hidden enough, but sometimes men would come by, and she would have to run. Keanu felt a lump in his throat. The thought of this young girl alone in the dark, clutching her bag like a shield, made something twist inside him. He asked her if she would trust him for one night, if she would come with him to a small motel nearby where she could have a bed, a shower, and a locked door to keep her safe. Lily looked up at him with wide eyes, searching his face for any sign of a lie. But all she saw was the quiet honesty that everyone always talked about when they spoke of Keanu. They left the diner together. People watched them go, some snapping photos when they realized who he was, but Keanu didn't care. He shielded Lily with his jacket as the rain turned into a cold drizzle. When they reached the motel, the old man at the reception raised his brows at Keanu, recognizing him instantly. Keanu didn't explain anything. He just asked for a room with 2 beds, paid in cash, and made sure Lily knew she could lock the door from inside. Inside the room, Lily looked around like she had stepped into another world. It was a simple place, a flickering lamp, a small TV, a clean bed with faded sheets. But for her, it felt like a palace. She disappeared into the bathroom for a long time. Keanu could hear the water running and hoped she was letting the warmth wash away the layers of cold that had settled on her skin and in her heart. When she came out, she wore a motel bathrobe, her wet hair sticking to her cheeks. She looked younger somehow, more like the child she still was. They sat on the edge of the bed, talking in hushed voices. Lily told him about her mother, who used to sing her lullabies before everything fell apart. She spoke about her dog, Max, who ran away when the fighting at home got too loud. Every word she shared was like a tiny piece of her soul she had kept hidden for too long. Keanu listened, nodding, never judging. He shared small stories of his own, how he too had lost people he loved, how sometimes he felt like he was wandering through life searching for something he could never name. Lily asked him why he had stopped for her tonight. She wanted to know why someone like him, rich, famous, loved by millions, would care about a girl no one else could even see. Keanu smiled gently, staring at the ceiling like the answers were written in the cracks. He told her that kindness wasn't about saving the world all at once. Sometimes it was about showing up for one person, in one moment, and giving them a little bit of hope to hold on to. He said he had been saved that way too, by strangers who didn't know him, but gave him reasons to believe that life could still surprise him. That as the night grew deeper, Lily's eyes began to close. She curled up under the blanket, her breath steady and calm. Keanu sat by the window, watching the cars pass on the wet road. He knew he couldn't fix everything for her, but tonight he had given her safety, warmth, and the feeling that she mattered. That alone was enough to keep him awake with a quiet sense of peace he hadn't felt in years. What neither of them knew was that tomorrow would bring new choices, choices that would test Keanu's heart and Lily's trust in ways they could never predict. Outside, the rain stopped, but the world beyond that window still waited with its storms, and somewhere deep inside, Keanu promised himself that he wouldn't let this girl slip back into the shadows. Keanu didn't sleep much that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he pictured Lily as he first saw her, standing alone in the rain, her eyes too old for her young face. He kept checking to see if she was okay, making sure she was breathing calmly under the motel blanket. Every so often, she would mumble in her sleep, tiny whispers of things she probably couldn't say when awake. As the first light of dawn crept through the thin curtains, Keanu made himself a promise. He couldn't just send her back to the streets. He knew that if he did, he'd spend the rest of his life wondering what happened to her. But he also knew he couldn't force her to accept his help. She had to choose that path herself. When Lily woke up, she looked confused at first, like she had dreamed everything. Then she saw him sitting by the window with a soft smile and remembered. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she had someone on her side. She stretched, her stomach growling a little. Keanu laughed and asked if she'd like pancakes. Her eyes lit up. It was the first time he saw a piece of her childhood peek through all the fear. They sat together at a small cafe across the street. Lily ate slowly this time, savoring every bite like it was gold. In between mouthfuls, she talked about things she missed, books she used to read, her favorite songs, the smell of her mother's baking before everything turned bad. Keanu listened and asked gentle questions, careful not to push too hard. He knew that trust was like a fragile thread, easy to break if pulled too quickly. When breakfast was over, Keanu took a deep breath and told her about a shelter he knew in the city. It was a good place, run by people he trusted. He said they could help her get back to school, find a safe place to sleep, and maybe reconnect with her mother one day if that was what she wanted. He watched her face carefully. For a second, he saw panic flash in her eyes. She clenched her fork. Her shoulders stiffened like she was ready to run. Keanu reached across the table, his voice calm and steady. He told her he wasn't trying to make choices for her. He only wanted her to know there were options. He said that sometimes the hardest thing was believing that you deserved another chance. He promised he would help her take the first step, but only if she wanted to. Lily looked down at her empty plate, her eyes filling with tears. She tried to blink away. She told him she had been in shelters before, places where she felt like a ghost, ignored or treated like a burden. She didn't want to go back to feeling like that. Keanu squeezed her hand gently and said this time could be different. He said he would go with her, talk to the people there, make sure she didn't feel invisible. His words settled something deep in her heart. For the first time in months, Lily let herself hope. She nodded slowly, wiping her tears with the back of her sleeve. Keanu gave her his warmest smile. They finished their coffee in silence. But it wasn't an awkward silence. It was the quiet of two people sharing a promise neither of them would break. As they walked out of the cafe, a man waiting by the door snapped a photo of them together. He didn't even ask. Lily shrank behind Keanu, feeling that old fear crawl up her spine. Keanu put an arm around her shoulder and shielded her from the man's camera. But he knew it was too late. The picture would spread. People would start talking. The world was always hungry for stories about him. But this one felt too precious to share with strangers who would never understand. On the ride to the shelter, Lily leaned her head against the window, her eyes half closed. Keanu watched her reflection in the glass. He knew that helping her was the right thing, but part of him worried. What if the world turned this into something ugly? What if people twisted her story, made her feel small again? When they reached the shelter, Lily hesitated at the door. Keanu bent down so his eyes met hers. He told her again that she was brave, that she deserved better, that he would be there as long as she needed him to be. She nodded, her tiny hand gripping his tightly. Together, they stepped inside. What waited for them behind those doors would test both of them in ways they didn't expect. Sometimes, a safe place could hold secrets of its own. Sometimes, even kindness had to fight to stay alive in a world that loved to crush gentle things. But Keanu didn't know that yet. For now, all he cared about was Lily's small hand holding onto his, a sign that maybe, just maybe, they could find a way through this together. The shelter was an old building with peeling paint, but warm lights glowing through the windows. Keanu squeezed Lily's hand as they stepped inside. The air smelled of soup and fresh laundry. People moved around quietly, some sitting with cups of tea, others helping kids with homework. It looked peaceful on the surface, but Keanu knew how many broken hearts filled these rooms. He hoped Lily would find something good here. The manager of the shelter, a woman named Maria, came to greet them. She was kind, with lines around her eyes that showed she had spent years worrying for people who had nowhere else to go. She recognized Keanu right away but didn't make a fuss. Instead, she crouched in front of Lily and spoke to her gently, asking about her name, her age, and if she was hungry. Lily hid behind Keanu at first, her voice small and nervous. Maria nodded and told her that she could stay as long as she needed. No questions asked. They sat together in Maria's small office while she explained the rules, meals at certain hours, lights out by 10, help with school if Lily wanted it. She promised that no one here would hurt her or make her feel invisible. Keanu watched Lily's face. She looked like she wanted to believe every word, but old fear still clouded her eyes. He squeezed her shoulder, reminding her she wasn't alone. Maria left to get some fresh clothes and bedding for Lily. While she was gone, Keanu and Lily sat in the small room in silence. Finally, Lily whispered, asking if he would come back to visit her. Her voice cracked when she said it, as if she was scared he'd disappear like everyone else. Keanu leaned forward and told her he would come as much as she wanted. He said she was not just a moment of kindness for him, she was someone who mattered. Just then, Maria returned with a soft blanket and a small bag of toiletries. She told Lily there was a room for her with other girls her age. Lily looked at Keanu, panic rising in her eyes again. She didn't want him to leave yet. Keanu asked Maria if he could walk Lily to her room. They went together down the narrow hallway, past walls covered in hand-painted drawings made by kids who had once felt just as lost. The room was simple but warm. 2 other girls were there, one reading a comic book, the other braiding her hair. They looked up when Lily walked in, their eyes curious but friendly. Keanu bent down to hug Lily. He told her again that he was proud of her, that she had done the hardest thing, asking for help. Lily clung to him tightly, not wanting to let go. He whispered that he would come tomorrow, and the day after that if she needed. He wanted her to feel she wasn't a burden, that her story mattered. When Keanu finally left the shelter, the night felt heavier somehow. The air was cool and sharp against his skin. As he walked to his car, he saw a man standing by the gate, camera in hand, waiting for him. The man shouted his name, asking what he was doing in a homeless shelter with a young girl. Keanu felt anger twist in his chest. He wanted to protect Lily from gossip, from people who would turn her struggle into cheap headlines. He didn't answer. He just got in his car and drove away, his hands tight around the wheel. That night, the photo of him with Lily at the cafe spread online. People started talking. Some praised him for being kind. Others whispered ugly things, asking questions that made Keanu sick to his stomach. He stayed up late reading the comments, each one like a thorn in his heart. He wondered if he had done the right thing, if maybe now he had made life harder for Lily instead of safer. The next morning, he woke up to dozens of calls from his agent, his manager, people worried about his image. Keanu didn't care about any of that. He cared about Lily. He called Maria at the shelter. She told him gently that Lily had seen the photos too. She had spent the morning curled up in bed, too scared to come out. Keanu felt a deep ache in his chest. He couldn't let the world break this fragile trust she had given him. He drove back to the shelter, ignoring the cameras waiting outside. Maria met him at the door and led him to Lily's room. She was sitting on the floor, her back against the wall, hugging her knees. Her eyes were puffy from crying. When she saw him, she didn't speak. She just reached for him like a child reaching for the only light in the dark. Keanu sat beside her, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. He told her that the world could be cruel, but she didn't have to carry its ugliness alone. He said he would handle it. In that small room, with her head on his shoulder, Keanu realized that sometimes protecting someone meant standing in front of the storm. No matter how fierce it became, he didn't know how yet, but he would find a way to keep Lily safe, even if the world tried to tear their story apart. Keanu stayed at the shelter with Lily for hours that day. They sat on the floor of her small room, the afternoon sun falling in strips through the thin curtains. Lily's head rested on his shoulder, her breathing uneven as she tried to make sense of all the noise outside these walls. Every so often, Someone from the shelter would knock softly and leave a cup of tea or a fresh blanket by the door. Keanu's phone buzzed constantly in his pocket. Messages from his agent, questions from reporters, requests for statements about the photo of him and Lily that had gone viral overnight. Some people praised him as a hero. Others made dark comments about his intentions, twisting his simple act of kindness into something it was never meant to be. The words made his stomach turn. But he hid it from Lily. She needed his calm more than his anger. Finally, Maria came in and sat with them. She told Lily that no one here would force her to do anything she didn't want to do. But she also said that sometimes when the world starts talking, it can get too loud to face alone. She suggested they tell people the truth before the rumors grew bigger. Lily shrank back, shaking her head. She didn't want cameras, microphones, or strangers asking her about things she still couldn't say out loud. Keanu asked her what she wanted. Lily whispered that she just wanted it all to stop. The photos, the voices, the eyes watching her like she was a story instead of a girl. Keanu held her hand and promised they'd find a way. He asked Maria if they could move Lily to a safe place, somewhere no one would find her until the noise died down. Maria nodded and said she knew a quiet foster home in the countryside, run by an older couple who had taken in girls like Lily before. Lily looked at Keanu, her eyes searching his face. She asked if he would still visit her if she went far away. His answer came without a pause. He told her he would always come, no matter how far. She was not alone, not now, not ever again. Her face softened then, and for the first time since the photo went viral, she let herself believe that maybe the world couldn't touch her if she stayed close to him. That night, while Lily rested, Keanu stood in Maria's office, talking about plans. They decided it would be best if Lily left quietly the next morning. No goodbyes in front of cameras, no clues about where she was going. Maria promised she would ride with her all the way to the countryside and settle her in gently. Keanu said he would handle the media storm himself. He knew people would keep asking questions, but he didn't care what they thought about him. He cared only about Lily's peace. When he left the shelter, the reporters were waiting again. Microphones were pushed in his face, questions thrown at him like stones. Why was he spending so much time with a homeless girl? Was this just for publicity? Was there more to the story? Keanu stood still, his calm like an unbreakable wall. He told them that the only thing people needed to know was that kindness didn't need a reason, and no one owed the world their pain for entertainment. He refused to say more. He went home that night, his mind spinning with worry. He remembered his own dark moments when he was young, when he lost people he loved, when he felt like the world only saw his name, not his heart. He knew Lily would carry scars for the rest of her life, but maybe now, those scars would remind her not of pain, but of a stranger who refused to let her be forgotten. Early the next morning, Keanu returned to the shelter with a small backpack. For Lily, inside, he packed things she might need: a soft sweater, a notebook, and a small stuffed dog he bought on the way. When he gave it to her, she held it tight, her eyes filling with tears that fell silently onto his shoulder as he hugged her goodbye. She whispered that she would write him letters, and he promised he'd read every one. Maria and Lily left before sunrise. Keanu watched their car drive away down the empty street, the first light of day breaking through the clouds above. He felt a quiet ache inside him, part sadness, part hope. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring for Lily, but he knew this. He had done what he could to remind her. She was not just another face in the crowd. She was seen, she was loved, and somewhere, a new chapter of her life waited, far from the noise, full of chances to begin again. But the world wasn't finished yet. As Lily's car disappeared into the dawn, Keanu's phone buzzed with a message that made his heart pound. Someone had found out where Lily was going. Someone wanted to turn her story into a headline all over again. Keanu knew in that moment that his promise wasn't over. The hardest part was still to come. He would have to stand up for her in ways that would test his spirit more than ever before. Keanu Reeves stood alone in his kitchen, staring at his phone screen. The message was short, but heavy. A gossip site had somehow found out where Lily was being taken. They wanted photos, interviews, anything they could twist into a story that would get clicks. His stomach turned. He had promised her peace. He couldn't break that promise now. He called Maria right away. Her voice was steady but worried. She told him not to panic yet. The countryside foster family knew how to handle privacy. But the fact that people were even looking for Lily made Keanu's heart ache. He felt the anger rise inside him, not wild anger, but the quiet, burning kind that settled deep and refused to die. He called his lawyer next. They spoke for hours about what could be done to keep the press away. Keanu asked if he could buy the photos if they were taken, to stop them from spreading. His lawyer told him that wasn't always possible, that once a story was out, it was almost impossible to pull it back. Still, Keanu didn't give up. He sent statements, reached out to people he trusted, begged them to protect Lily's name, to leave her out of the world's cruel games. In the days that followed, Lily settled into her new life slowly. The foster parents, Emma and George, were gentle souls. They gave her warm food, soft blankets, and space to breathe. They didn't ask too many questions, and they didn't treat her like she was broken. Lily spent her mornings helping Emma feed the chickens in the yard. In the evenings, she sat by the fireplace, writing in the notebook Keanu had given her. She wrote about small things, the sound of birds, the smell of fresh bread, the way the old dog rested its head on her knee. These little details were pieces of a life she never thought she'd get to have. Sometimes she missed Keanu terribly. She wished he could see her now, hair brushed, eyes brighter, belly full. She knew he was fighting for her still, even if he couldn't always be near. Every letter she wrote, she ended with the same words, "Thank you for seeing me." Keanu visited her when he could. Each visit was quiet, just an hour or two in the garden, talking about books and music and silly things. He brought her art, supplies one day, remembering how she'd said she used to love to draw. She made him promise to keep one of her sketches, a tiny picture of the diner where they first met. He kept it folded in his wallet like a small reminder that even in a noisy world, kindness could create something that lasted. The press kept trying. Stories came and went. But the truth was simple and gentle, and the truth wasn't juicy enough for them to keep chasing. Slowly, the noise faded. People moved on to the next big scandal, the next shocking headline. Lily's story became a quiet miracle no one could twist anymore. Months passed. Lily started attending a small school in the village. She made friends, real ones who didn't care who she used to be. She helped Emma in the kitchen, learned how to bake bread, and sometimes ran barefoot through the fields just to feel the sun on her face. She wasn't completely healed. Some nights she still woke up crying from old memories. But each morning, she chose to stand up, to live one more day. And that choice, Keanu believed, was the bravest thing anyone could do. One evening, after Lily's first day back at school, she sat at the old wooden table with Emma and George. They said a small prayer of thanks for the meal. Lily closed her eyes and whispered her own prayer too, not asking for things, but thanking the stranger who once bought her dinner and refused to let the world swallow her whole. Miles away, Keanu sat in his quiet house, the sketch Lily made resting by his bedside. He read her letters over and over, each word a reminder that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create ripples that reach far beyond what we can see. He knew people would forget the headlines one day, but he would never forget the night. He looked through that diner window and saw a girl standing alone in the rain. He had once wondered if he was really living or just drifting through life. But Lily taught him that life wasn't about grand gestures or fame. It was about moments when you choose to stand beside someone who needs you. Even when it's easier to walk away, their paths were forever changed by a meal, a warm booth, and a promise whispered through tears. And in a world so quick to forget, their story stayed, a quiet reminder that kindness is never wasted, and that sometimes, even a single act of compassion can save a life.